All right, let's dive into this concept of flow. That feeling of being totally absorbed in what you're doing. We're looking at excerpts from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's book, aptly titled Flow.
Right.
And seeing what we can learn.
The book delves into what makes experiences enjoyable. And crucially, how to experience them more often. It examines how we often chase achievements, thinking that's the key to happiness. But real satisfaction might be closer than we think.
So right from the start, the book makes this distinction between pleasure and enjoyment. And, I mean, I like to have fun, but what's the difference?
The author uses a really interesting analogy. Think of pleasure as like a reflex. Basic instinct that ensures survival. Eating because you're hungry. Reproduction. Those are driven by pleasure. But enjoyment emerges when we go beyond basic needs, when we test our skills and grow.
So rather than instant gratification, it's more about seeking experiences that help us evolve.
Absolutely.
Let's see where this is going.
It's like leveling up in a video game, but in real life. And this leads to the central idea of the book, flow.
Now, this is where things get interesting. Csikszentmihalyi describes this state of total absorption, where you lose track of time and worries disappear.
You become completely immersed.
That sounds incredible.
It is.
But how do we achieve this?
Well, he outlines a few key elements that create a flow state. The first is a balance between challenge and skill. If something is too easy, we get bored, too hard, and we feel anxious.
Makes sense.
Flow happens in that sweet spot where our abilities are stretched just enough.
Like when a musician loses themselves in a performance. Or an athlete pushes their limits in a competition. They become completely present. Everything else just fades away.
The author provides several examples of people experiencing flow across different activities.
Like what?
He talks about a chess player so engrossed in a tournament that the outside world disappears. A rock climber who feels at one with the rock in the sky. Even a surgeon operating in perfect harmony with their team.
Wow.
It's this complete immersion where awareness and action merge.
But flow isn't only about these big accomplishments?
That's right.
He says it can also be found in everyday activities.
Precisely.
Even mundane ones.
Yes.
So how is that possible?
Csikszentmihalyi gives examples of people finding flow in seemingly ordinary situations. He describes a factory worker named Rico who turns his repetitive job into a challenge.
A challenge. How?
By constantly striving to beat his own production record.
So even a factory job can be a flow experience.
It depends on how we approach the task.
That's interesting.
He also talks about Joe, another factory worker, who finds flow in building intricate rock gardens.
In his free time.
Yes.
That's unexpected.
And even creating sprinklers that make rainbows.
Wow.
The activity itself is not the defining factor. It's about how we engage with it.
So we can find flow in anything.
Potentially, yes.
If we approach it with the right mindset.
Exactly.
He even mentions walking as a flow activity.
Oh, believe it or not.
Walking.
Seriously.
You can make it engaging.
How so?
By being intentional. Choosing a scenic route. Focusing on the sensory details.
Like what?
The feel of the pavement, the sounds of nature, the rhythm of your breath. It's about turning a simple act into a source of mindfulness.
That's fascinating. It makes you think differently about everyday things.
Exactly.
But let's explore this idea further. The body as a gateway to flow. The book dedicates a whole section to this, exploring how physical activity can be conducive to flow states.
Makes sense. Our bodies are capable of so much.
They are incredible instruments.
Exactly.
Csikszentmihalyi talks about the joy of pushing your limits in sports or fitness, the feeling of freedom in dance, even the profound connection through intimacy.
So we're tapping into our inherent potential for flow by using our bodies.
Yes.
He even applies this to eating, suggesting that even meals can be flow experiences.
It's about being mindful, savoring every taste and texture.
It sounds like it's less about the action itself, and more about how we focus on the sensations.
Precisely.
So we can harness the power of the body to achieve flow states.
Absolutely.
This is all incredibly interesting. We've talked a lot about the physical side.
Okay.
What about the mind?
Well,
does Csikszentmihalyi discuss
he does
flow in the context of mental activities?
A good portion of the book explores that.
So our minds can also experience flow.
Yes.
I'm intrigued.
He calls them symbolic activities.
Yeah, like what?
Thinking, learning, creating.
No.
These can be powerful avenues for experiencing flow.
So not just physical or sensory experiences,
right,
but also engaging our cognitive abilities.
Precisely.
How does he explain that?
He focuses on how interacting with symbolic systems,
such as
language, math, music, even our thoughts and memories, can bring order and satisfaction to our minds.
I can see that. There's satisfaction in solving a tough problem.
Right.
Or getting lost in a good book.
Exactly.
Or having a stimulating conversation.
It requires critical thinking, imagination, tapping into our knowledge.
Right.
So it makes sense that those could be sources of flow. He connects this to the idea of organizing information, creating order in the mind. Remembering your past can bring clarity and connection to your life.
I see.
He also talks about the enjoyment of learning history and science, pursuing knowledge for its own sake.
It's like we're trying to make sense of the world. Right.
Finding patterns and connections to bring order to our experiences.
And engaging in activities that allow us to do that is incredibly rewarding.
So those mental pursuits can be just as fulfilling as physical endeavors.
Absolutely.
This is really thought-provoking. It expands what I thought of as a flow experience. But what about work?
What?
Most of us spend a lot of time working.
It's a significant part of our lives.
Right.
Does he address the role of flow in our professional lives?
Yeah.
He does.
And what does he say?
He presents an interesting finding.
What is it?
People often report experiencing more flow at work than during their leisure time.
Really? That seems counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
Work is usually associated with stress.
Yes.
And to-do lists.
Right.
While leisure is supposed to be relaxing and fun.
But he offers some explanations.
Okay, what are they?
Work often provides clear goals, feedback mechanisms, and opportunities to utilize our skills, which align with those core elements of flow.
So the structure of work can actually be conducive to flow.
Precisely.
How does that compare to leisure time?
He points out that leisure can feel aimless, unstructured, lacking those elements of challenge and engagement.
Interesting.
He uses the example of the surgeon we discussed earlier, highlighting how surgery demands clear objectives, immediate feedback, opportunities for skill development, and teamwork, all characteristics of a flow activity.
So are we all destined
Not necessary.
to find work more enjoyable than leisure?
It's not that work is inherently more enjoyable, but that jobs can be designed to incorporate those flow-inducing elements.
So we can find ways to weave those elements of challenge and skill utilization into our professional lives.
That's the idea.
Now, that's something to think about in terms of my own work-life balance.
It's worth considering. But let's shift gears and talk about relationships.
Okay.
Does Csikszentmihalyi explore flow?
He does.
In our social connections.
Building strong relationships is another path to cultivating flow.
I see.
He emphasizes shared goals, mutual support, and the ability to find new challenges within those relationships.
So it's not just about pursuing flow individually, but also finding it in connection with others.
Exactly.
He delves into how families, friendships, and community involvement can all provide opportunities for flow. What are some examples?
Finding joy in shared activities, raising children, building a strong foundation, providing emotional support, challenging each other to grow, working together towards a common good.
It seems like shared purpose is crucial for flow in relationships.
Absolutely.
It's about establishing those dynamics of challenge and skill development within our social interactions.
That's a great insight.
This is also insightful. It really expands our understanding of where flow exists.
Yes.
But life isn't always easy.
Of course not.
We face adversity and challenges.
It's part of life.
Does Csikszentmihalyi address how flow can help us navigate those difficult times?
This is where his argument gets really profound. Flow isn't just for good times. It can be a powerful tool.
In what way?
for navigating adversity and even transforming challenging situations.
That's a bold claim.
It is.
How can flow help us with hardship?
He shares compelling examples. People who have experienced paralysis, finding new purpose and challenge in adapting to their situation, experiencing flow and rebuilding their lives.
So even in the face of immense challenges, flow is still possible.
Precisely.
He also mentions practices like prayer, meditation, connecting with nature as ways to find solace and order amidst external chaos. Like, those practices provide a framework, a sense of structure that allows them to tap into flow, even when life gets tough.
He introduces the concept of transformational coping, the ability to reframe adversity as a chance for growth.
So we can choose how we respond to challenges.
It's a matter of perspective.
We can let them defeat us or use them as fuel for growth.
Flow can be a powerful catalyst.
Interesting.
In that transformative process.
This has been really eye-opening. His insights are profound.
They are.
But he doesn't start there, does he? He talks about developing something called an autotelic personality.
That's right.
To be honest, I'm not sure I fully understand that concept.
That's where he brings everything together. An autotelic personality is someone who is intrinsically motivated, finding enjoyment in a wide range of activities.
So they embody the flow state.
Yes.
Not just in certain moments.
But as a way of life.
That sounds pretty incredible.
It's about mastering your own experience, finding joy in the journey itself, rather than focusing on external outcomes.
I like that.
It's a powerful shift in perspective.
But what does an autotelic personality look like?
Well,
what are the characteristics?
One key trait is setting clear goals and actively seeking challenges.
So not avoiding difficulties, but embracing them as opportunities for growth.
Exactly.
Another characteristic is developing skills and mastering activity.
So constantly honing our abilities. Striving for excellence.
It's about the journey of learning and improvement, finding satisfaction in becoming more skilled. He also emphasizes focus and minimizing distractions.
That's a challenge these days.
It is, with all the constant distractions. But cultivating focus is essential for experiencing flow.
It's about being fully present in the moment.
Another crucial characteristic is non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. That sounds like mindfulness.
It is similar.
Observing thoughts and feelings without getting swept away.
Exactly.
It's about being an observer of your own experience.
Precisely.
And lastly, he mentions finding meaning and purpose beyond ourselves.
This is where it all comes full circle.
It is.
Connecting to something larger than ourselves. Finding purpose that drives our actions. It's about transcending ego-driven motivations and aligning your actions with a greater purpose.
Whether it's contributing to our community or pursuing a passion that benefits others.
Exactly.
This has been an incredible discussion.
It has been enjoyable.
Csikszentmihalyi's work is truly insightful.
His ideas are thought-provoking.
It's given me a whole new perspective on how to approach life and find meaning.
It's a valuable framework for living a more fulfilling life.
Before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I think it would be helpful to summarize some of the key takeaways.
That's a good idea.
What are the most important points for our listeners to remember?
Let's put together a concise summary.
Okay, I'm ready.
So we're diving into this idea of meaning. How we create it through our actions and choices. Csikszentmihalyi tackles those big life questions, like what is the meaning of life?
He acknowledges that everyone wants to find meaning.
It's a universal human drive. This desire to find purpose and understanding.
I can definitely relate to that.
And he points out that this search for meaning has taken many different forms throughout history.
Makes sense.
Shaped by culture, societal norms, and individual values.
He uses the example of ancient Greeks who wanted to achieve immortality through heroic deeds.
Their stories becoming legends and myths. And then he contrasts that with the Christian world, where the focus was on eternal life through piety and devotion.
So both of those pursuits, while very different, represent this fundamental human need to find meaning.
To find significance beyond our limited lifespan.
Exactly.
And Csikszentmihalyi argues that finding meaning is essential for a fulfilling life.
I can see that.
He describes the disillusionment and apathy that can arise when we lack purpose or direction.
It's like that feeling of emptiness, that lack of motivation. when our lives feel meaningless.
He talks about the work of sociologist Pitram Sorokin, who categorized cultures based on their values.
Interesting.
Sorokin identified 3 main types.
What are they?
Sensate, ideational, and idealistic.
Okay, tell me more about these categories.
All right, sensate cultures prioritize sensory experiences, material possessions, and immediate gratification.
So that's the live for the moment approach.
Right.
What about the other 2?
Ideational cultures revolve around spiritual beliefs, emphasizing abstract principles, transcending the material world.
So it's more about a higher purpose or spiritual enlightenment.
And idealistic cultures try to integrate both material and the spiritual.
So it's like a middle ground, finding balance between satisfaction and a higher purpose.
Csikszentmihalyi points out that each cultural orientation influences how people approach the search for meaning.
That makes sense.
Our cultural background shapes our values, which then influence our choices.
He argues that there's no one right way.
Exactly. But understanding these different approaches gives us a framework for examining our own values.
So it's like a tool to help us understand ourselves.
He suggests that the sensate approach, while appealing, doesn't always deliver lasting fulfillment.
Like chasing a fleeting high.
Right.
You get a temporary surge, but then you're left wanting more.
He argues that by focusing solely on possessions and sensory pleasure, we miss out on deeper satisfaction.
It's a deeper connection to something bigger than ourselves.
On the other hand, he acknowledges the challenges with the ideational approach.
The spiritual one.
While it can provide purpose, it can also lead to a disconnect from the practical side of life.
So we need that balance. We don't want to neglect our responsibilities.
And then there's the idealistic approach, trying to integrate both the material and the spiritual.
He suggests that this approach, while complex, has the greatest potential.
Creating a fulfilling life.
It's finding that sweet spot
between
passions, contribution, and inner peace.
He also explores the idea that finding meaning is a journey.
A journey, not a destination.
A process of discovery and growth.
I like that perspective.
He describes it as a spiral of ascending complexity.
What does that mean?
Individuals progressing through stages as they mature and understand themselves better.
So what are some of these stages?
He suggests that most people start by focusing on their own needs.
Makes sense.
Ensuring their survival.
Basic needs.
As we develop, we expand our circle of concern.
To include
family, community, maybe even humanity.
So our purpose broadens as we grow.
Right.
It extends beyond ourselves.
He acknowledges that not everyone will reach the highest level.
Of the spiral.
Some may remain at earlier stages.
Right. Everyone's path is different.
But this framework represents a model for how our search for meaning can evolve.
It's a guide, not a strict set of rules.
Now, this idea of meaning-making connects with Csikszentmihalyi's idea of flow.
I was just thinking that.
They seem to go hand in hand.
They do?
Flow experiences, by their very nature, contribute to creating meaning.
How so?
They encourage growth, help us connect to something bigger, and provide a sense of accomplishment.
So flow drives us forward.
On that journey of finding meaning.
Exactly.
And he suggests that a lifestyle that prioritizes flow is key to creating a meaningful life.
So it's about incorporating those principles into our everyday lives.
It's a shift in how we approach life.
Now, he also talks about psychic entropy.
Ah, yes, psychic entropy.
Sounds a bit intimidating.
It's the opposite of flow.
Okay.
A state of mental chaos where thoughts are scattered.
Right.
And we lack direction.
He says it disrupts our mental equilibrium.
Leading to anxiety, boredom, apathy.
It's like a turbulent river.
A good analogy.
Versus a calm stream.
Psychic entropy drains our energy.
Makes sense.
Making it harder to engage.
Our minds get cluttered.
With worries and distractions.
Preventing us from focusing.
And he suggests that external factors can make it worse.
Like what?
A chaotic environment, constant distractions, even a lack of challenges.
Yeah. So our surroundings can impact our mental state.
He uses an interesting analogy.
Okay.
He compares the mind to a dissipative structure.
I'm not familiar with that term.
Think of a whirlpool or a tornado.
Okay.
They maintain their form by constantly exchanging energy.
Energy in, energy out.
Right. Maintaining a dynamic balance.
And our minds are similar.
We need a constant input.
Of what?
Information and challenge.
To keep us focused and engaged.
Without those inputs, our minds can descend into chaos.
Like that whirlpool losing its shape.
Exactly.
So how do we combat this psychic entropy?
Flow experiences are crucial.
Oh,
they provide the necessary input, helping us maintain order.
It's like mental hygiene.
A proactive approach.
So we need to cultivate habits that help us manage this chaos.
Things like mindfulness, meditation, setting clear goals, engaging in challenging activities.
To keep our minds sharp and focused.
This is giving me a lot to think about.
It is a lot to process.
But Csikszentmihalyi doesn't just leave us there.
He offers solutions.
Strategies for combating this entropy.
I'm eager to hear more about those.
He does offer strategies, and that's where we'll focus now.
Okay.
On the practical side of his ideas.
Right. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have flow, enjoyment, meaning-making. But how do we actually apply all of this?
It's like having all the ingredients, but no recipe.
Exactly. Csikszentmihalyi doesn't give us a strict formula, but he offers guidance on how to live a life that prioritizes flow and maximizes enjoyment.
That sounds like a good recipe to me.
It does, doesn't it? So where do we start?
That's the question.
He suggests becoming more aware of our experiences, paying attention to those moments when we feel truly alive.
Like when we're completely engaged.
Yes, and fulfilled.
It's about recognizing those moments.
Well, exactly.
When our skills and the challenges align.
It's like becoming a detective of your own experiences.
I like that analogy.
Noticing what truly sparks your interest. It makes time disappear.
He encourages keeping a journal.
He does.
To track those moments of engagement.
To help us identify patterns.
So we can see what activities consistently bring us joy.
Exactly.
And once we've identified those sources of flow, what's the next step?
Then we consciously incorporate more of them into our lives.
We make intentional choices.
Yes.
To prioritize those activities.
It's about taking control. Becoming the architects of our own experiences.
Designing our days to include more opportunities for flow.
That's a great way to put it.
So that might mean making time for hobbies.
Or
physical activity. Or even just spending time with loved ones.
It's about making those choices that align with our values.
Small changes.
Yes.
But impactful ones.
And he emphasizes setting clear goals.
Goals are important.
For ourselves, but also in our relationships, at work, in our communities.
They give us direction.
A roadmap for our efforts.
Without goals, it's easy to feel lost.
He suggests those goals should be challenging, but also attainable.
To avoid boredom or anxiety?
Right. Finding that sweet spot.
But goals aren't fixed, are they?
They evolve as we progress.
Like climbing a mountain. Each peak reveals a new one.
He also talks about the importance of feedback.
What do you mean?
Evaluating our progress, making adjustments.
Feedback helps us stay on track.
Like a compass?
We can get feedback from ourselves.
Yes, our intuition.
And from others.
From trusted individuals or objective measures.
It's about getting a complete picture of our strengths and weaknesses.
And then he talks about developing our skills.
So important for flow.
As we master one level, we naturally seek the next challenge.
Like those musicians who spend years mastering their instrument.
Or athletes who train relentlessly.
It's that pursuit of mastery that keeps them going.
He reminds us that skill development isn't just about technical ability.
Okay, what else is involved?
Cultivating inner qualities.
Like what?
Focus, discipline, perseverance.
Right, the mental side of things.
Strengthening our mental fortitude.
To overcome challenges and become more resilient.
And lastly, finding meaning beyond ourselves.
Connecting to something larger.
It's where flow and purpose intersect.
He suggests that meaning can be found
in many places.
In our relationships.
Yes.
Our work, our communities.
Our connection to nature, our beliefs.
It's about finding what resonates with us.
What gives us a sense of purpose.
And that's something we actively cultivate.
It's not passive.
It's about making choices that align with our values.
Absolutely.
This has been an amazing journey.
It has.
Exploring Csikszentmihalyi's work.
His ideas are truly transformative.
I hope our listener feels inspired.
To embrace flow.
To find those activities that bring them joy.
To set goals, hone their skills.
To create a meaningful life.
I want to leave our listeners with this thought. The capacity for flow for enjoyment, for creating meaning.
Yes.
It's within all of us.
It's not exclusive.
Anyone can unlock it.
We have the power to shape our own experiences.
Absolutely.
To create a life that reflects our values.
And with that,
yes,
we conclude our deep dive.
Thank you for joining us on this adventure.
May your journey be filled with flow.
And a profound sense of meaning.
Until next time.
Stay curious.
And keep exploring.